risk of developing breast cancer is affected by things such as age, breastfeeding, and germline mutations such as the BRCA1, BRCA2 carriers they highlighted. But up to this moment, really, we haven't had a detailed map of how these factors change the normal healthy breast. So we fixed this problem, and over the last 5 years, we've built this detailed map of how these factors change the cellular ecosystem within the breast. And one of the big surprises from our study, which is, I should say, this is the world's largest map of this cellular changes. One of the biggest surprises is that in the BRCA1, BRCA2 healthy tissue, we find exhausted immune cells. And this is surprising because normally these cells are found at late-stage tumors. So what are exhausted immune cells? They are basically, as you know, our immune system is there to protect us against infection and disease, so to remove damaged cells. And what tends to happen is, effectively, the cells can become dysfunctional and they can't remove these cells, so they kind of got termed exhausted.
And that's where immunotherapy comes in, doesn't it? Because
Exactly.
it sort of stimulates these exhausted cells in order to kill and destroy the cancerous ones.
Exactly, and this has been one of the most exciting developments in cancer treatment in the last few years, is our ability to kind of reactivate or retrain our immune system to remove damaged cells. So actually what's happening now is with this detailed understanding of the biology of how tumors develop and initiate, we've now initiated a new study with support from CRUK, Cancer Research UK, to be testing multiple compounds actually in a preclinical model, including immunotherapy, to see if we could prevent tumor onset. So basically we'll be giving the drugs before any tumors arise.
So obviously a long way off, and you'll carry on a lot of research on this, but in the end the hope is you'll give a possibility to women who are faced with that awful choice about whether to have a double mastectomy or not. They could take these drugs in order to ward off the risk of the disease, is that right?
Absolutely, this is what we're hoping for, and the exciting part about our study was we'll be looking at drugs that are already approved. These are things that are available in the clinic for other indications, and I think we're hoping that once our preclinical studies are done, and if they're positive, of course, we could move very quickly to the human setting and see if that would work. The other thing that we were really interested in, because this is quite an important topic, is actually we're setting up a focus group where individuals are affected by these mutations to basically get them involved and help us shape the way that we do this research, because of course this is a major decision for them and their families.
And if they want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
We'll have our information on the website, so I'll maybe share it with the team and get some post it for us. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Walid Khalid, and Michelle, your expert analysis of the exhausted cells was spot on.
I mean, my 10 seconds worth of reading out what was in the Times. Now let's turn to the bank holiday weather with Chris Forbes.
Hi Michelle, good morning. Well, we're looking at an unsettled day today. Low pressure in charge, bringing outbreaks of rain or showers across the UK, so most of us will see some rain at some point during the day today. Now we'll start off across England and Wales, where dry starts to the day across much of northern England, North Wales, North Midlands. Further south, South Wales, southern counties of England, the South Midlands, East Anglia. We've already got a few showers around, and as we head through the day, the showers are going to become much more extensive, some of them with hail and thunder, so a high chance of catching a downpour at some point during the day today. Gusty winds towards the south coast, not quite as windy as yesterday, but still gusts running into the 30s of miles an hour, pushing those shower clouds along. Temperatures around 12 to 14 degrees, out of the wind and the sunshine, probably not feeling too bad really. For Northern Ireland, a dry start to the day, but it won't stay that way. We'll see some showers develop as we head into the afternoon, and again, some of those could be quite heavy. Temperatures around 11 degrees. The forecast for Scotland, low pressure is with us this morning, bringing some rain to central and eastern Scotland and also the Northern Isles. Now there's an improving situation. Most of the rain will tend to ease away through the morning. The afternoon looks brighter with sunshine, but there will be some showers working into southern areas today. Temperatures around 10 to 12 degrees. The weekend, although showers do feature in the forecast, there'll be far fewer of those around. Bigger gaps between the downpours. You've got a better chance of staying dry Saturday and Sunday.
Now, to take us up to 7 o'clock, A verse of a Good Friday hymn.
It's 7 o'clock on Friday the 28th of March. The headlines this morning. A major Conservative donor has been awarded a knighthood in a surprise honours list announced by the Prime Minister. There are calls for a police investigation after the BBC saw documents showing the Post Office fought a legal battle against grants managers despite knowing its defence was untrue. Israel says it's looking at ways to boost aid into Gaza after the UN's top court ordered it to increase supplies without delay. The BBC News is read by James Steele.
One of the Conservative Party's largest donors has been awarded a knighthood after being recommended by Rishi Sunak. A number 10 source cited the extensive public and charity service of the Egyptian-born billionaire businessman Mohammed Mansour. Labour said it was a decision by someone who didn't expect to be Prime Minister for much longer. 4 Conservative MPs have also been recognised in a surprise honours list. Is our political correspondent Leila Nafi.
Lists of people who have received honours are typically published at New Year and on the King's official birthday in June. But last night the government announced that in addition to 6 people in the creative and tech industries, a number of political honours had also been handed out. The business tycoon Mohammed Mansour, who was previously a minister in the Egyptian government under Hosni Mubarak and is now senior treasurer of the Conservative Party, has been awarded a knighthood. He gave £5 million to the Tories last year, at the time its biggest donation in more than 20 years. Labour said the Prime Minister had shown a blatant disrespect for his office in recommending the honour for Mr Mansour. The Conservative MPs Mark Spencer and Philip Davis, a former presenter on the TV channel GB News, have also been knighted, while 2 others, Harriet Baldwin and Tracy Crouch, have been given damehoods.
The other honours included a knighthood for the Oscar-winning film director Christopher Nolan, while his producer and wife Emma Thomas is made a dame. The co-chief executive of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, has been given an honorary CBE for services to creative industries, and Dr. Demis Hassabis, who co-founded the Google-owned artificial intelligence firm DeepMind, is knighted. A senior MP has called for a police investigation after a previously undisclosed report seen by the BBC showed the Post Office had resisted legal claims for compensation by branch managers despite knowing its defence was untrue. The draft document from 2017 states that the Horizon software used in branches could be accessed remotely. Marina Iyengar has this report.
The draft report was commissioned by the Post Office in 2016 and carried out by the consultant Deloitte. It says that Fujitsu employees did have the ability to amend or delete transactions entered by branch staff, but the Post Office kept arguing in court at a cost of £100 million that theft or mistakes by sub-postmasters must be to blame for the shortfalls. Last night, the Labour MP, Kevin Jones, who sits on the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board, said this was an abusive use of public cash against innocent people. He told the BBC that the police need to start looking at this and that there won't be any justice until people are brought to court. The Post Office said it would be inappropriate to comment on the BBC's findings.
Israel has said it's looking at ways to increase humanitarian aid being sent to the Gaza Strip and has denied that it places any limits on the amount getting in. Yesterday, judges at the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to take all necessary and effective action to ensure basic food supplies reach the Palestinian population. From Jerusalem, our Middle East correspondent Yuan Nell reports.
The International Court of Justice has issued new provisional measures ordering Israel to allow more food, water, fuel and shelters into Gaza. Catastrophic living conditions there for Palestinians have deteriorated further, the court said. People are no longer facing only a risk of famine, but that famine is setting in. The new measures were requested by South Africa as part of its case that accuses Israel of state-led to allow a continuous flow of aid into Gaza by land, air and sea, working with the UN and others. It said that Hamas was to blame for the situation in Gaza and for starting the war.
Reports from Syria say at least 36 people, including some Hezbollah fighters, have been killed in an airstrike near the city of Aleppo. The Syrian Defence Ministry said Israel had carried out the attack. British-based monitoring group said the strikes targeted weapons stores near Aleppo International Airport. Israel hasn't commented. Analysis shared with the BBC has shown how fire is being used as a weapon in Sudan's civil war, with more than 100 villages burnt since the conflict began last year. Fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary group RSF has forced millions from their homes. Tens of thousands of people have died. Here's our diplomatic correspondent James Landau.
Sudan's civil war is almost a year old and there's no let-up in the fighting. Reporting the conflict is hard because access is limited. But the Centre for Information Resilience in London is using NASA technology, satellite data and social media to piece together a picture. And it's calculated that since last April, 108 villages in Western Sudan, mostly Darfur, have been either fully or partially destroyed by fire. It said one town called Misrai had been burned systematically, street by street. Anouk Thunissen, who leads the research, said fire was being used as a weapon of war. Thousands, especially from the black African population, have been forced from their homes. Much of the violence in the region is blamed on Arab militia and the so-called Rapid Support Forces, something the armed group repeatedly denies.
The UK is to almost double the amount of aid to Sudan. The government says a package of aid worth £89 million will be delivered to the country over the next year. A large proportion of the money will go towards emergency funds to feed people, especially children under the age of 5. 45 people have been killed in a bus crash in South Africa. There was only one survivor, an 8-year-old girl. The bus was travelling from Botswana to Maria, a town in the northern province of Limpopo, when it crashed through a barrier and fell down a ravine. Passengers were being taken to an Easter church service. There are reports of long queues at the port of Dover this morning as the Easter getaway begins. Airports and airlines are expecting passenger numbers to return to pre-pandemic levels. Rail travellers are being warned to check their plans in advance because of engineering works. Here's our transport correspondent Katie Austin.
It's the busiest time of the year so far for travel. Major roads are likely to get clogged up and drivers could face some unsettled weather. The Travel Association ABTA thinks 2 million Brits will head overseas in the next few days. The Advantage Travel Partnership of Travel Agents says Easter holiday bookings are up 9% compared with last year, despite rising prices, with more people choosing all-inclusive deals to control costs. After a challenging few years, airports and airlines want to make the most of the strong demand. They and the air traffic control provider NATS say they've done what they can to make sure things go smoothly. Meanwhile, engineering works mean rail disruption in some places. For example, London Euston Station is closed, apart from the London Overground, from today until Monday.
The Star Wars actor John Boyega has spoken publicly for the first time about his childhood friendship with Damilola Taylor, who died aged 10 after being stabbed 24 years ago. The actor has given an interview to Radio 4's Last Word programme to honour Damilola's father, Richard Taylor, who died this week after spending years campaigning against knife crime. Mr. Boyega spoke to the presenter John Wilson.
John Boyega has never publicly discussed the night in November 2000 when his friend Damilola was killed. The schoolboy was stabbed in the leg with a broken bottle and left to die in a stairwell in South London. John and his sister Grace were with Damilola shortly before the attack. Agreeing to talk to Last Word to honour Damilola's father, Richard, he told me of the shock that he felt when he learned of his friend's death.
We were literally just with him right before he went to the library, and so we kind of split paths. And once I got home, a few hours from then, police was out. I was so young, but I just remember thinking I didn't know that mortality worked that swiftly. Like the days kind of just went on, and then somebody was gone instantly. Somebody that I just saw, somebody that I just spoke to, but it was definitely hard.
But John Boyega also spoke with warmth and humour, as he recalled Damilola's energy, charisma and love of poetry. He said that he imagined that had his friend lived, he might have gone on to become a successful screenwriter.
And hear more on Last Word here on Radio 4 at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
The time now is 9 minutes past 7. Now about the new year and at the time of the monarch's birthday. What about restaurants. As this came out last night, a major Conservative donor and 4 MPs have been organised the recommendation of Rishi Sunak, including businessman Mohammed Mansour, who gave him £5 million to the Conservatives in 2023, and as a senior treasurer at the party, he was knighted for business, charity and political service. But we can talk now to Professor Justin Fisher, who is a professor of political science at Brunel University and a specialist on the finance of political parties. Good morning.
Morning.
How unusual would you say the timing is?
Well, it does look very odd, given that it's on Good Friday, Parliament's in recess, and obviously the rest of the world is on holiday today. So it is kind of slightly odd. I mean, the reasoning given is that they need to get it through the Privy Council, but I suspect they could have done it 1 or 2 days earlier.
Yes, that's one of the justifications for it, is saying that we needed to add Vaughan Gething, who's the Welsh First Minister, and Stephen Flynn, the SNP leader in Westminster, to the Privy Council.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, sometimes these things are unfortunate, but given that, and given the people who've been honoured, I think it's unfortunate for the government that it's come out when it has.
Unfortunate in what way?
Well, I mean, because it's a sort of slow news period when people's minds are on other things in the country, but also because of, in particular, one of the knighthoods is apparently controversial because he's a significant donor to the party.
Yes, so that we're talking about Mohammed Mansour, who was a politician in the Mubarak government in Egypt, and he's given £5 million to the Conservative Party. And he's also donated to many charitable causes, though, hasn't he, including the King's Foundation and the Memorial for the Victims of COVID.
He has, yes, and that's often true of donors, that they make contributions to a variety of charities and so on and so forth. And that's, of course, one of the issues when accusations are made, that we don't know what is the difference between someone who makes charitable donations and does charitable work and someone who gets an honour. Is there only one difference? And of course that work is never really done to any satisfaction. But in this case, the gentleman who's been recommended for an honour made a very large contribution to the party just last year of £5 million. So I think that makes it slightly difficult for the government. It doesn't mean automatically that anything is awry, but I think it makes it difficult, again, given the timing as well.
Do you think it raises broader questions about the system of political donations in this country?
Not really. What do you think? So I don't think there's any real alternative there, but it does look a bit difficult for the government, and I think it's self-inflicted in this case. If someone who gave £5 million in 2023 is recommended for an honour in 2024.
What about some people saying this fuels speculation about a summer election?
I think that's very unlikely. I think it's most likely to be in November.
Professor Justin Fisher, many thanks.
The time is now 13 minutes past 7. The International Court of Justice in The Hague has made another order relating to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, observing that famine is setting in. And with all 16 judges, including the Israeli judge, who is a Holocaust survivor, saying that Israel had to cooperate fully with the UN to ensure food, water, electricity, shelter, medical care and other essentials are available to Palestinians throughout Gaza. The ruling said catastrophic living conditions had deteriorated since January, when it ordered Israel to prevent genocidal acts in Gaza. The Israeli government says it is looking at ways to increase humanitarian aid and has denied that it places any limits on the amount getting in. Let's turn to Sir Geoffrey Nice, the barrister who led the prosecution of Slobodan Milosevic at a UN War Crimes Tribunal. Morning, Sir Geoffrey.
Good morning.
First, on the decision that the court has made to issue provisional orders, this is part of the ongoing genocide case, but what did you make of the fact that they were prepared to issue this order yesterday?
I think that reflects the evidence that was available to them
challenge was in some ways by the Israeli judge of increased food insecurity at a level said to be unprecedented. Starvation is coming, and that simply has to be stopped. That's why they acted as they did. The number of people who have been killed is also referred to, and that I think helps further make the decision that they have done.
Would you expect Israel to act on the basis this? Clearly it didn't want these provisional measures to come. It challenged that, and it has given the statement which I referred to a moment ago. But is a ruling like this binding?
The rulings are, in a sense, binding, but there is no power of enforcement, and in the past Israel has not obeyed orders of the International Court of Justice. Whether it will take further steps now to make food in particular, but also other essential items available to the Palestinians, is perhaps uncertain, and it's a political, not a legal question, so slightly outside my expertise. However, it's going to be very difficult for Israel not to show that it has honored in some way the order of this court, because the outrage around the world and starvation happening in the way it is happening, along with the deaths that are happening to civilians and in particular children, is losing Israel such sympathy as for so long it has enjoyed. So I think it may have some effect, but total effect, ceasefire, probably not.
But the argument that Israel makes that while this impact on civilians is unfortunate and sad, this is what wars are like, and it is acting in self-defense. Does that argument have a legal weight?
Technically it has a legal weight, but the body of opinion is overwhelmingly against its being valid overall in this situation. Not only have you had expressions in the Security Council's decision to require a ceasefire, but you've had other recent determinations by United Nations agencies and by the United Nations Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur that the evidence for genocide is sufficient to raise a case against Israel, that Israel is now in the position of losing so much support, I think, from the world generally, and from citizens around the world generally, that I don't know what it's going to do, but it can't carry on as it's doing, losing support in this way. And it must therefore do something to reflect the judgment that is being made against it. If it will not engage in a ceasefire, that it should be taken in due course, if there's evidence against it, to a court for determination of criminal responsibility, as of course should all those people of Hamas who've been arrested and are still alive, because the world will now demand an assessment of criminal responsibility by both sides of this horrible conflict.
But it's not part of the international. It's not part of the International Criminal Court, is it?
No, but there's jurisdiction in the International Criminal Court to look at this matter, and it is being looked at. And even if there were no such jurisdiction in the International Criminal Court, it's always open to the United Nations to create a special court to deal with this. And I think if you ask what the ordinary citizen of the world would want now, apart from an immediate ceasefire, surrender of the hostages, an assessment of criminal culpability for the terrible events that happened in October, the citizen of the world will also now expect that the time has come, if there is a world order of any kind, the time has come for countries like our own, and indeed the United States of America, to be alerting Israel's leaders to the fact that a criminal accountability of them, if there is an accountability to be made, and of Hamas, must be something they look forward to, and they must expect that they will be handed. Sorry.
Just to be clear, you're suggesting, I think, that one day there may well be a war crimes tribunal covering Israel and Hamas in the way that you were part of the Slobodan Milosevic and the former Yugoslavia tribunal?
There should be. It may well be that it can simply be achieved by the International Criminal Court, which has jurisdiction. If not, some other process should be set up. We are said to live under an international order, including an international criminal justice order. Of course, it's only partial, but this conflict has become so severe, has attracted such condemnation in respect of both sides' activities, that the world citizen will look to countries like our own, urging there be a criminal accountability process. And if that points to the leaders of Israel itself having to face criminal accountability processes, then countries like ours and the United States of America should tell those leaders that in due course, if they need to be surrendered because evidence is shown to be sufficient to justify a trial, that they will be handed over to such a court. We've got to stop living in a world where some countries are favoured and some are not in respect to things like criminal accountability. And what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Gaza, both so far as what Hamas has done, which is very clearly, ultimately criminal, and what Israel is doing now, which is found by so many people to pass thresholds of criminality, the expectation must now be that that will be subject to a criminal trial accountability process.
Sir Geoffrey Nice, thank you.
It's 7:20. 1 year ago today, Evan Gershkovich of the Wall Street Journal was arrested in Russia and accused of being a spy. His detention sent shockwaves through the foreign correspondent community. Nothing, of course, compared to the shock felt by his family back in America. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg reports from Moscow on an American journalist in a Russian jail.
I'm standing opposite a large 4-story building with pale yellow walls and barbed wire. This is Lefortovo jail. It was built in Tsarist Russia, and some of Russia's most high-profile prisoners have been incarcerated here, including political prisoners and dissidents. Former inmates say that the most unnerving thing about this place is the sense of total isolation. Locked up here is an American journalist, Evan Gershkovich. 1 year ago, we caught a fleeting glimpse of the Wall Street Journal reporter as he was driven away to Lefortovo. Evan Gershkovich had been arrested and accused of spying, the first US journalist in Russia since the Cold War to be charged with espionage.
The insinuations that he was somehow engaging in some kind of criminal activity is just flat out false.
Lynn Tracy is the US ambassador to Russia and one of the few people who've been allowed inside Lefortovo jail to see Evan.
He is managing, he's in good health, he's dealing extremely well with the day-to-day circumstances. It's not easy when there are so many uncertainties. He was and is a journalist who was doing his job. The message is release him now.
It's been a really difficult year, and the uncertainty is very hard to deal with. But
Danielle Gershkovich is Evan's older sister. Speaking from Washington, she tells me about the letters Evan's been writing from prison and the ones she writes back.
We have a lot of sibling banter back and forth, a lot of teasing with love. I recently was asking him if it's okay for me to see the Dune movie, the sequel, in theaters. Felt guilty about seeing it since he can't. And he tells me about books he reads.
Is it true that he sent some flowers from prison?
Yes. We want him to focus on himself, and here he is taking care of us. But it was so nice for International Women's Day. He arranged for the women in his life to receive some bouquets. He supports the people in his life. We desperately miss him.
Я не исключаю, что и тот человек, о котором вы сказали, господин Гершкович, может оказаться на родине.
Last month, Vladimir Putin claimed he'd love to see Evan Gershkovich go home. But the Kremlin wants something, or rather someone, in return. That someone is thought to be an FSB officer, Vadim Krasikov, who's serving a life sentence for murder in Germany. The Wall Street Journal's editor-in-chief, Emma Tucker, believes that as far as Evan is concerned, the Russians took him to trade him.
Russia has latched onto the fact that there's a currency it can use, and it's, to be frank, stockpiling Americans in its jails in order to be able to trade them at a later date. Evan is a hostage. He is a bargaining chip. Putin is holding him as currency. And that is just the brutal reality of it, and it makes it very, very difficult for governments to know exactly how to approach this, because there's a lot at stake here, including what might happen in the future.
There is absolutely no legitimacy. I've been threatened.
Among the Americans in jail in Russia is former US Marine Paul Whelan. He's serving a 16-year prison sentence for spying. Like Evan, the US has designated him wrongfully detained. And last year, journalist Alsu Kurmasheva, who holds American and Russian passports, was arrested. She's been charged with spreading false information about the Russian army. As Daniel Gershkovich makes clear, the ordeal of those behind bars is shared by their families.
To me, this will always be about my brother getting him home, but of course it's also about journalism, freedom of speech. So the world needs him too. We just want to see him home.
And the US government wants to bring Americans home. But how does it do that without Moscow concluding that hostage diplomacy works, and without encouraging more arrests of more foreigners?
Steve Rosenberg reporting on
The time now is 25 minutes past 7. The demand for AI skills in all professional jobs is to rise by 65% in the next 6 years. That's according to one professional platform. Fliss is back to tell us more. Hi there.
Hello, yes. A lot of people are worried AI is coming for their jobs. This suggests it's coming into their jobs even faster. This is research by LinkedIn. It says demand for AI skills is rising, but it also found less than half of UK business leaders are actively investing in those AI skills for their existing workforces. Let's talk to Janine Chamberlain, who is UK Country Manager at LinkedIn. Janine, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What's up with these numbers? You're expecting to see a 65% increase in the number of companies who want these skills by the end of the decade. Will that be a lot, or is that a rise from a very low base?
So, when you look at the landscape right now, AI is changing the skills and the tools